The New York Rangers have definitely made lots of changes with this current roster since the beginning of last regular season, and I think it's pretty obvious the New York Rangers lineup is definitely going to look quite a bit different compared to last opening night, for example, compared to this upcoming one in the season of 2025-26. So in today's video, we're going to take a look at a Yahoo Sports article here and kind of break down their forward combinations for the New York Rangers for the upcoming season, as well as I'll probably throw in my kind of favorite defense combinations for this team for this upcoming season as well to finish things off. So quickly to kind of highlight some of the big changes that we have seen over, this past season there up until now, and even a bit into last offseason there. We obviously saw Barclay Goodrow kind of first off, he got waived. Then we started to see some big trades there with Jacob Trouba. Then we saw, Philip Hedl, Ryan Lindgren, Jimmy Vesey. Lots of New York Rangers got dealt away this past regular season before the trade deadline. And then we started to see even more major moves happen throughout this offseason so far, where we saw Keandre Miller, another longtime Ranger, get dealt away, and also, of course, another very, very long time, and at the time, the longest tenured Ranger in Chris Kreider also got dealt away. So we have seen lots of core players of this team get dealt away, which I think for the most part there, most of these trades, I kind of like there. Even that Kakko trade, I kind of forgot to mention there, but, getting Borgen back for him, also a couple draft picks, I think was quite nice. So in general, I made a video not too long ago as well. I'll have it probably linked at the end of the video here if you want to take a look at it. But I kind of went through every single one of the New York Rangers trades that happened since the beginning of last offseason up until now, obviously, and kind of went through every single one of those trades there. And I think for the most part, they were pretty good trades there. There weren't too many that I think were kind of necessarily bad trades as of this moment. And now let's get into things here. And first off, take a look at the notable players that were left out of these lines from Yahoo Sports. And the forwards that I'll mention are Brennan Othmann, Brett Berard, and Taylor Radish. Those are the three kind of main notable forwards that I would say were left off their list, or kind of lines, I guess you could say. I think there are some other guys as well, prospect-wise, that are going to soon be kind of knocking on the door there and definitely could be call-ups throughout this season at some point. They're like Adam Sikora, Noah Laba, Dylan Rubrek, Jackson Dorrington, the prospect the Rangers got back, the defenseman in that JT Miller trade. So I think there are a few prospects there that are going to really start knocking on the door, like we saw from guys like Othmann and Berard and Perreault. This past season there's a next kind of wave of guys like that. So I think that's nice, but there's definitely going to be some tough decisions to make there with these prospects, because not all of them I see kind of being on this team in 2-3 years. There's no way. There's a lot of forward prospects that I think are kind of about there. And in a year or two, there's going to be so many more that are kind of about ready to kind of, or deserving almost kind of get that chance. And not all of them are going to have that opportunity here with the Rangers. So they're going to have to make some decisions on which one are actually going to get that chance at the initial level with this team, but also which ones are going to possibly get dealt away. I'm not going to dive into that in this video, but that's just kind of another discussion as well, because there are a lot of really solid kind of wing prospects, not a ton of elite ones like maybe a Gabe Perreault, but there are a bunch of really solid, kind of decent looking forward prospects that are maybe in that kind of middle six, kind of bottom nine range there that are going to need some time at some point in the very near future. So that's a big question, obviously, and that's kind of why Othmann and Berard are being left off this list, I guess, because there are quite a few, solid forwards already on this team that can play in that kind of middle six kind of wing role. And there obviously is that kind of fourth line that's already set there. And adding in a guy like Taylor Radish, although he's also left off the lineup here, that is a pretty notable guy there. He's making about, $1.5 million for the next, couple of seasons here. So he's also a guy who's really competing for that third line spot. So it's going to be tough, and it's going to be interesting to see what Mike Sullivan ends up going with for a kind of forward kind of combinations here. But first off, for the fourth line, Yahoo Sports does have on the left side there Adam Edstrom, then down the middle Sam Carrick, and on the right Matt Rempe. This is not surprising at all to me, and this is exactly what I want to see for our fourth line of the New York Rangers headed into this upcoming offseason. I think having a first-off centerman like Sam Carrick, who is, I would honestly say, a nearly perfect fourth-line center. I'm not saying he's a perfect overall player, but he is such a great player to have as your fourth-line center. Right now, he is making $1 million for the next 2 seasons here. He signed a 3-year deal last offseason, and I think that's honestly pretty incredible value. Not saying he would have gotten like, 2.5, 3 mil on the open market, but he definitely would have gotten a lot closer to that 1.5, approaching possibly that kind of 2 mil mark potentially. And I think, picking him up on a $1 million contract per season is not bad at all. He's a really good two-way, gritty kind of veteran center there, can help kill penalties. And also, you've got Matt Rempe, that big, tough player out there who I do think kind of took some strides last offseason there in his development. And also you got Adam Edstrom there who has a pretty decent skill set there, is also a monster out there on the ice like Rempe. Not quite to that level, but Edstrom has a little more kind of talent there offensively, maybe a bit more kind of refined all-around game, but obviously helps in bringing that kind of physicality as well, just like Carrick and Rempe can do. So I think that is a phenomenal fourth line that isn't going to be a complete kind of liability defensively. It's not going to be like a shutdown line, but can hold their own defensively, hopefully, and also produce a little bit of offense, but mainly are going to bring a lot of toughness, physicality, and a lot of energy as well. And next up here for the third line, this is where we already start getting to a bit of controversy here, as they do have for the third line on the left side, Gabe Perreault, down the middle, Juuso Parssinen, and on the right side, Johnny Brodzinski, which I think is kind of interesting. I think right now, if you're going to say who is the best player out of a guy, let's say, like Johnny Brodzinski, Othmann, Berard, or even Rempe, let's throw into the mix there as well. If you're talking about kind of all those four wingers there, I would definitely say the best one, if you're talking about for right now, today, or like the start of this season, it's Johnny Brodzinski, in my opinion there. If you're talking about the pure best player as of this exact moment, it's probably Brodzinski, right? It's probably Broads. But I do think, when you're kind of going into this regular season there and kind of what you have with a guy like Brodzinski there, but you don't have any idea what you really have with a guy like Othmann or Berard, that's kind of why I do really want to see, two of Perreault, Othmann, and Berard in this team there for opening night. But I also understand that, they might want to go out there and possibly ice a little bit more of a veteran team there who might be a bit better of an overall player, right? That could make a bit of sense there. So I understand why this team may end up doing this as well and have Brodzinski in there over a guy like Berard or Othmann, but I just think it's a little unfortunate there because, I do think these are some guys who really need to get some opportunities there and, a good sample size with this team to really see what they can possibly produce. But starting them both in the AHL possibly to begin this season, might not be the worst thing at all for the development, but obviously, not having them in the NHL team isn't ideal because I do think, we really kind of need to see what they can bring for this team. But obviously, it seems like for this list, they have Brodzinski, Perreault, and Juuso, which I do think makes a lot of sense there to have Gabe Perreault on the third line. That's probably where he's going to be. And I do think we will see him or Othmann or Berard for sure on that third line somewhere. One of those three, I'm pretty much guaranteeing it. Whether it's Perreault, Othmann, or Berard, I don't know, but I would kind of lean more towards Perreault being the guy of those three to get that kind of nod there. And for Juuso, I do think he will be that third line center. I really like having, kind of Mika Zibanejad on wing there. I would much rather see him as that kind of, top six kind of right winger than have him as a kind of third line center. So in my opinion, I like having him out there. He can stay on the wing. He can be that kind of fifth centerman if you want there, that sixth kind of centerman with Brodzinski there as well, of course. So this team has some pretty solid center depth now in the organization, especially after, adding in a guy like JT Miller and bringing in a guy like Juuso. We'll have to wait and see. I think Juuso definitely has some more to kind of prove there than what he's kind of shown so far. He's got some good size there at about 6'3" or whatever. Brings a lot of energy, some good kind of pace to the game. I think brings a lot of physicality, a solid kind of two-way game. Definitely has some stuff to work on, but can definitely be a pretty solid kind of third line center possibly for this team and is also still in his mid-20s as he is still only 24 years old, turning 25 in early February. But taking a look now at the next line here, the second line for the Rangers, Yahoo Sports has Will Cooley on the left, JT Miller down the middle, and Mika Zibanejad on the right wing. And honestly, I really like this line a lot. That's one of the lines that I definitely think could make a lot of sense for this team to kind of come out with. And first off here, like I said, I do think Mika Zibanejad being on the wing is probably what's best and very well is probably what's going to end up happening as well, in my opinion. I think he obviously played a lot better once going over to the wing, and having him play alongside two guys in JT Miller and Will Cooley, who obviously can bring a lot of energy and some toughness and physicality, I definitely think is the right kind of fit there. Because at moments, Mika Zibanejad can definitely be one of those players who I think maybe gets a little disengaged from the game at moments there, kind of just is just kind of out there on the ice, isn't kind of having that overall kind of intense impact like guys like JT Miller and Will Cooley definitely can. On the ice, it feels like, they're two very intense, kind of high energy, impactful kind of guys who were always kind of flying out there. Not saying they're, McDavid kind of speed guys, but they're giving it their all the time there. They're buzzing around, they're hitting, they're being physical, they're playing with some energy, playing with some life, where a guy like Zibanejad, it feels like sometimes he just doesn't have that in his game at moments. So I think him going alongside those two type of players makes a lot of sense there. And all three of these guys can do a bit of goal scoring and a bit of playmaking there. They're all, pretty good, kind of solid all-around players, especially Mika Zibanejad, being on a wing now. I think he'll have a much better kind of defensive game as well, I'd imagine. So I think this could not only be a really great offensive line, but also be a pretty good physical line and also a very, very good possible defensive line as well. And the last line they have here for the top line for the New York Rangers, they have one that we have definitely already seen before, and that is Artemi Panarin, Vincent Trocheck, and Alexis Lafreniere. Now, they definitely had a lot of success in 2023-24. So not this past season there, but the one before it. That's where we saw Alexis Lafreniere have a massive breakout season. We saw him get a career high in goals, assists, and points. Then for Vincent Trocheck, he ends up having a career high in points as well as assists. And then for Panarin, he also has a career high in points as well as goals, but not assists. So all three of these guys had multiple of, the points, assists, and goals category be career highs in 2023-24 as a line together. But then, of course, going into this past season there, they end up not doing the greatest job there and still, put out some all right numbers, but compared to what they did together the previous season, it was obviously nothing close because Panarin went from 120 points down to 89. Then for Vincent Trocheck, he goes from 77 down to 59, and then Alexis Lafreniere goes from 57 down to 45. So all three of them had some pretty big drop-offs there, but obviously Panarin being 31-point drop-off there, it's a pretty massive number. But thing is, I think going forward into this upcoming season there, I really am kind of hopeful that we're going to see this team kind of get back on track, because I do think at the beginning with the Barclay Gaudreau kind of situation there with him getting waived, obviously, and the kind of talk around that. And then we saw even earlier on last offseason there as well, the talk with Jacob Trouba and all that kind of stuff with the Red Wings possibly being traded there, and that doesn't happen. Then it goes into this season there, and there's still a lot of talk and lots of drama. And then we finally see, Trouba traded away. We finally see that extension handed out to Lafreniere and Igor. Then we see a bunch of trades happen. Like, we have seen so many things happen with this team in the last kind of, calendar plus year, whatever it's been. So I really do think, with kind of a fresh start here, almost with a new coaching staff and all that kind of stuff, I really am hopeful this team can get back on track there to their winning ways and, have some of these guys like Panarin kind of get back on track there to hopefully having another 100-point kind of plus season there. And for a guy like Lafreniere, hopefully can get it right up around maybe that 60, 70-point mark once again. And obviously, wasn't quite there the other season, but 57 points, not too far off of what I definitely think he can be out there of that 60, 70-point mark for hopefully this upcoming season. So I think some guys will definitely hopefully get back on track there, and this line definitely could be some of them. Taking a look, though, at my kind of defense core quickly, I've kind of talked about it in the past. They're not going to talk too terribly long about it, but I figured I'd kind of throw the defense core in as well because they did not include that in this article. But for my kind of defense core, I do have, after adding Gavrikov, of course, him my top pair alongside Foxy. Then I would go with on the second pair there, I personally want to see Schneider make that jump to the left side there, which he has done in his junior days with the Brandon Wheat Kings, as well as with the Rangers this past season there. So I want to see on the left side for the second pair, Braden Schneider alongside Will Borgen. And then for the third pair, I want to see Carson Soucy alongside Scott Morrow, the new prospect the Rangers picked up in that Keandre Miller trade, with Urho Vakanainen being that seventh defenseman. But if he jumped in there over a guy like Soucy, I could understand it, but that's just kind of my thought process there. So we'll have to wait and see what happens there with these lines overall, but we have seen a lot of changes happen there. We've seen a lot of change with the coaching staff as well, so I think it'll definitely be a very interesting season for the New York Rangers. Anyways, thank you all so much for watching today's video. If you have enjoyed, definitely don't forget to click that like and subscribe button for daily New York Rangers content, as I do post every single day a video at 10 a.m. Eastern Time, as well as definitely don't forget to comment down below your thoughts on this video. What are your thoughts on these lineup combinations here from Yahoo Sports? Do you like them? Do you disagree? Do you hate them? Let me know your thoughts on those lines there. What do you want to see for lineup combinations? And also, do you want to see a guy like Offman and Berard in there as well? Do you want to see one of those kind of three there with Perreault in the mix? Do you want to see two with three? All three there? Let me know your thoughts. And also, of course, let me know your opinion on my kind of defense core as well there, it being, Gavrikov alongside Foxy, then Schneider alongside Borgen, and Susi alongside Morrow with Urho Vakinainen as a 7th defenseman. I'll catch you next one, and let's go Rangers.